The seatbelt sign clicked on with a soft chime, washing the cabin in a warm amber glow. The engines droned steadily, a sound most passengers barely noticed anymore. People settled in for the long flight ahead, adjusting headrests, opening novels, scrolling endlessly on glowing screens. It was all routine, ordinary, predictable. In seat 17A by the window sat a woman who blended perfectly into that normalcy. Early 40s, hair pulled back in a practical low bun, no makeup beyond what fatigue demanded. She wore dark jeans, running shoes, and a faded navy jacket with no logos. A small canvas backpack rested at her feet. She looked like someone heading home after a long business trip. Nobody paid her any attention. That was intentional. She preferred it that way. The captain's voice came over the intercom, calm and practiced. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're expecting some light turbulence as we pass through the next air corridor. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened." Most passengers barely reacted. A few tightened their belts. A flight attendant took her jump seat. The woman in 17A lifted her eyes slowly and glanced out the window. The sky looked clear, almost peaceful. But something about the timing, the phrasing, the subtle tension beneath the captain's tone set off an old, familiar alarm in her chest. Instinct. She'd learned long ago to trust it. 10 minutes later, the plane shuddered, not from turbulence, but from something else. A deeper vibration. Different. The seatbelt sign flashed again. A low murmur rippled through the cabin. Then someone gasped. Outside the window, cutting cleanly through the thin cloud cover, were two sleek, dark shapes moving with impossible precision. Fighter jets. Close enough now to see the angular lines, the sharp wings, the unmistakable profile. F-35s. Phones came out instantly. A child 2 rows back pressed his face to the glass, whispering excitedly, "Dad, jets." "What are they doing so close?" someone asked. The woman in 17A didn't reach for her phone. She didn't lean closer. She didn't react at all. Her shoulders stayed relaxed, her breathing slow, but her eyes tracked every movement with clinical focus. The captain's voice returned, quieter this time. Too quiet. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are coordinating briefly with air traffic control. Everything is under control. Please remain calm." That was when she heard it, not over the speakers but faintly, bleeding through the cockpit door. A clipped exchange, military cadence, a phrase that hadn't been spoken in years, a name buried under layers of classified files and old call signs. "Confirm if Raven Actual is on board." Her fingers curled slightly against the armrest, so it had finally caught up to her. One of the jets edged closer, perfectly aligned with the wing. Sunlight flashed across its canopy. Inside, the pilot turned his helmet just enough for the gesture to be unmistakable. He raised his hand and saluted. Not the aircraft. Her. A stunned silence spread through the cabin like a held breath. Passengers stared, confused, whispering urgently. Another jet mirrored the motion, both holding the salute for a long, deliberate second before easing back into formation. The man in the aisle seat beside her leaned closer, eyes wide. Do you know why they just did that?" She didn't look at him. "Not yet," she said quietly. Hours earlier, she had passed through security without incident. No escorts, no priority boarding. Her ticket listed a forgettable name, L. Hayes, economy class, one carry-on. She'd made a career out of disappearing into places exactly like this. She hadn't flown commercial since the incident. Back then, the sky hadn't been calm. It had been loud, violent, full of fire. Years ago, over a stretch of desert that didn't officially exist, her aircraft had taken a hit. Surface-to-air fire. One engine gone, systems failing, alarms screaming. Below her, 2 Allied jets spiraled downward, crippled, pilots ejecting into hostile territory. Protocol said, disengage. She hadn't. She dropped altitude, pulled into the danger zone, and circled like a shield while rescue teams scrambled. She'd taken fire meant for them. Landed what was left of her aircraft on a scorched strip of dirt with fuel gauges reading empty and hands shaking from adrenaline. Both pilots survived. One of them had promised her a drink when it was over. He never got the chance. That was why she was on this flight now. Not for recognition, not for ceremony. She was heading to a small town most people couldn't find on a map. A quiet memorial, no cameras, no speeches, just a promise kept. Back in the present, the jets stayed with them, silent guardians against the endless blue. The cabin buzzed with speculation. Government agent, celebrity, someone important. No one guessed the truth. When the fighters finally peeled away, dipping their wings once in a final gesture, the woman in 17A let out a